Is matcha good for you? This is a question we get asked all the time, and we're often reluctant to answer it. At the end of the day, matcha tea is simply just tea leaves mixed into water, so it must be good for you. There are often major health claims prescribed to matcha, but they can be over-exaggerated. While we like to stay away from making health claims about tea, we thought we would take a look at what makes matcha tea unique and why matcha tea may be good for you. Before we get started, please make sure that you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so you can stay tuned for future tea videos. We have hundreds of different videos on all sorts of topics related to Japanese green tea, but in this video, we're going to stick to matcha. Without further ado, let's get started. Why is matcha good for you? Before we get started, let's just take a quick look at some of the claims people have made about matcha. While the main reason we like matcha is for its taste, we like to see a lot of people drinking matcha tea for all sorts of different reasons. Matcha for weight loss. Some people claim that matcha helps people lose weight. The jury is still out on this, but we can take a look later on at what people are saying might be the reason for it. The question of is matcha good for weight loss could be answered once we learn a little bit more about what matcha is. Matcha for skin. In addition to being consumed, matcha powder is also used topically for skincare. You can find recipes for matcha face masks and matcha creams online, and supposedly they can help reduce acne and lead to clearer skin. Before we answer is matcha good for skin, we have to examine the components of the tea itself. Matcha for athletic performance. A lot of people use matcha to improve their athletic performance. Many people like to drink the tea in the morning before their workout and report that it gives them a longer lasting, more sustained energy. Matcha for concentration. Similar to drinking matcha tea before a workout, people also drink matcha before work or long periods of study. There are a few reasons why matcha might lead to better concentration, and we'll get into them next. Benefits of matcha. Before we determine if matcha is good for you, we need to break down its components. What makes matcha so special? And what does matcha have that few other teas do? Caffeine and matcha. While all true teas contain some level of caffeine, matcha contains a much higher amount. There are a few reasons for this. The first reason is that the tea plant used to make matcha is shaded for 3 weeks before the harvest. During this time, the tea plant undergoes a lot of stress and it has to produce more caffeine to defend itself from insects. As a result, shaded teas will have more caffeine than unshaded teas, all else being equal. Caffeine is produced as a defense mechanism to protect the tea plants from insects. Caffeine can be very bitter and even poisonous to smaller insects, so it's an effective natural insect repellent. The younger leaves are more tender and vulnerable, and therefore they produce even higher levels of caffeine. Because matcha is made from the youngest sprouts of the tea plant, it gets a much higher dose of this caffeine. And this is the second reason why matcha is higher in caffeine than other teas. The third reason for matcha's abnormally high caffeine content is because of the fact that it has its stems removed during the production process. The stems of the tea plant have as little as a third the caffeine compared to the leaves, and they are removed from the leaves to improve the flavor of the matcha. This raises the caffeine levels of the matcha tea. Finally, the leaves are ground into a fine powder and mixed directly into water. This means that rather than extracting the caffeine slowly over time, like you would with a leaf tea like sencha, you get it all at once in one matcha bowl. Theanine in matcha. In addition to being high in caffeine, matcha is also high in theanine. Theanine is an amino acid that gives green teas their sweet and savory flavors. Although it's present in all forms of Japanese green teas, it's particularly high in matcha. This has to do with the long 3-week shading process of matcha tea. When the tea plant is exposed to sunlight, it begins to convert theanine into catechins as a protection against the UV light. When the tea plant is cut off from sunlight, it's able to retain more of its theanine. This leads to a smoother flavor and potentially more health benefits of matcha. Antioxidants in matcha. The main antioxidant in teas is called EGCG, or epigallocatechin gallate. While this doesn't necessarily exist in higher quantities in matcha, you end up ingesting more of it because you are drinking the entire leaf rather than just an extraction. Chlorophyll in matcha. Higher chlorophyll is another byproduct of the long shading process. This allows plants to convert sunlight into energy, and the tea plant is no exception. When the tea plant is cut off from sunlight, it has to produce more chlorophyll in order to compensate. As a result, the final product is a much greener matcha powder and a higher chlorophyll content in the matcha tea. Is matcha good for skin? Apparently, the EGCG in matcha can be great for fighting inflammation and acne in the skin. The leading theory for this involves something called sebum. Sebum is a natural oil found on your skin, and when it doesn't have enough antioxidants to fight off stressors like chemicals, bacteria, and UV exposure, it begins to oxidize, which can cause acne. It is thought that by adding an antioxidant like EGCG to your skin can reduce the sebum oxidation and can lead to clearer skin. While more evidence may be needed to back this up, it may be worth a try. Is matcha good for weight loss? Matcha is often touted for its help with weight loss. While this might be overstated, the claims are bolstered by a 2018 study in which participants were told to drink matcha and go for a 30-minute brisk walk. The matcha group was found to have enhanced fat oxidation during their walk when compared to the control group, which could lead to greater weight loss overall. In addition to this, it's hard to argue with the energized feeling people get when they drink a matcha tea. This elevated level of energy will hopefully lead to more activity throughout the day and more calories burned. Finally, a cup of matcha tea without added milk and sugar contains around 5 calories. Compare that to something like an energy drink, which can have over 100 calories. The question of is matcha good for you may simply come down to what does it replace. When it comes to weight loss, matcha is definitely no substitute for a healthy diet, but these factors can make matcha good for weight loss. Make sure you do your own research before you make any drastic changes to your diet, but you may find that matcha tea fits quite easily into your daily routine. Is matcha good for focus? Many tea drinkers like to use matcha for long periods of work and study. The reason for this is likely not just about the caffeine, but also about the theanine. Theanine is thought to work synergistically with caffeine, buffering some of its negative side effects. It slows the absorption of caffeine, so instead of getting a spike of energy and a crash later on in the day, you get a longer lasting, more sustained energy throughout the day. Matcha drinkers also report having less of this jittery feeling and nervousness that normally accompanies a cup of coffee. This can be helpful in not just getting more work done, but also maintaining a calmer, less stressed state. Matcha was originally consumed by the monks to help improve their concentration during long periods of meditation. When you're sitting down with your eyes closed for long periods of time, it can be hard to stay awake. Whether you're meditating, working, or studying, chances are that matcha might help you get the best out of your day. Is matcha good for athletic performance? One reason why people enjoy drinking matcha tea before a workout is because of its high caffeine content. This can help supercharge your workouts, particularly in the morning time when all you may be able to think about is putting your head back on the pillow. The caffeine will make you feel less tired and more ready for action. In addition to the caffeine, the theanine can also be helpful. If you were to throw back a few shots of coffee before an important match, you may be overwhelmed with a feeling of nervousness and stress. If you were to drink matcha tea instead, you may notice a feeling of calm alertness. Enough energy to get the job done, but not too much that you start to feel anxious. Where can you buy matcha tea? If you're looking to buy some matcha tea, you can find a bunch of different varieties on our website, neoteas.com. If you really want to maximize the theanine caffeine of the matcha, you will want to go for a high-quality, ceremonial-grade matcha. These matchas are made from the first harvest, so the nutrient levels are higher and they also are more carefully produced to create as smooth of a flavor as possible. For beginners, we recommend the Noike matcha, a super smooth okomidori matcha produced by a small farmer outside of Kyoto. Although this matcha is quite affordable, it tastes like a premium matcha tea. Matcha tea for lattes. If you're not so interested in the taste and more interested in the health benefits, we recommend going for the latte matcha. This is a less expensive form of matcha that can be used in smoothies, matcha lattes, and matcha shakes. While the taste may not be as good as the premium matcha, it's easy enough to mask with other healthy ingredients. This is an easy way to add matcha to your daily routine without having to drink it plain. I hope you have all enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Make sure that you're subscribed so you can stay tuned for future tea videos. Until then, we'll see you next time.